TV. I'm your host, Tom Burritt, and this is episode 5. Today we're going to build on episode 4 and talk a little bit more about the most important part of that episode, which was sound and tone through the stroke. We talked about posture, how important that was, and playing area, where we strike the bar, but I wanted to get in a little bit more detail, since this is such a complicated topic, just wanted to get more detail about the actual stroke. We talked about relaxation in the stroke and how important that is. But first, before we talk more about that, we're going to talk about the fact that I'm carrying a basketball and why. Well, I like to teach using analogies, and so because I used to play a lot of sports, I still do some, I think there's a lot of what we can pull from the understanding of what athletes do, because I think to a large extent what we do here is very athletic. The stroke really needs to be just like bouncing the ball. When I'm bouncing the ball, it's coming straight up and down, and it's a very fluid motion. Okay? You don't ever see students, or basketball players rather, you never see them palming the ball. In fact, that's illegal in basketball, right? So, what does that mean here? Well, it's simple. I'm going to bounce this stroke. So it's very fluid motion. It's not this. Okay, you can see what I call a hitchin stroke. This is very fluid, and what you should be able to hear a clear difference between those two. A fluid stroke versus more harsher, or more tense stroke. And so the difference really is this sound is much warmer and not as bright, where this sound tends to be a little bit brighter and a little harsher. Now, I can use both those sounds in the way that I play, but I find that most young players especially really only know how to do the second one, which is more tense of a stroke. So this fluidity of motion, like I mentioned in the last episode, is so important. And let's explore why they'll sound different. Okay, so the first stroke has a nice natural rebound. So the bars, the marimba bars in this case, are really happy about that, because they're just, kicking the mallet off, and they're really happy about the fact that the mallet goes away when the bar tells it to. All right. In the second example, where this is sort of tense, the bar isn't as pleased. And I like to think of the marimba as almost a human being, meaning it's going to react to what we do. And it's either going to be pleased about it or unhappy about it. And that sounds like a silly idea, but it's so important. There are two types of players that I hear. Players that really care about what the instrument has to say and what it's telling them. And then there are players who don't really care about what the instrument has to say. And I always like the first player better. Okay, so as you're playing that first exercise, that double vertical exercise, strive, okay, to connect to the instrument through the mallets. Okay, that's why relaxation is so important. I mean, what other instrument do you know of that doesn't require touch, physical touch by the performer? Well, it's hard to name any, actually. And so the mallets in this case are really our only way of connecting to the instrument. So relaxation is the best way, I think, to kind of get the most out of the instrument, feel what it's doing, because it will communicate how it's feeling. And that warmer, darker sound from the relaxed, very open, fluid stroke, it's basically the marimba saying, I really like that. I'm going to give you the best sound that I'm able to do. And then a more tense stroke is the marimba objecting a little bit, because the mallet stays on the bar too long, because you're not letting it come off the bar naturally. So that's the big thing. One other thing about stroke that's really important, if you think about hitting a baseball, a good coach will tell you to send the body weight first, right? Then the speed of the wrist. It's not wrist, then body weight, or even just wrist. Now, I can use just wrist if I want, no problem. But if I want a little extra sound, I can utilize my arm, which in this analogy is my body moving, and then follow with the wrist. So that looks like this. You can see my arm coming down from the side. It looks like this. You can see my arm coming down first, followed by the mallet. So that's today's axiom. A real more specific look at angle of stroke, relaxation, connecting to the instrument, really having a lot of interest in what the instrument is saying. This is a two-way street here. Bounce the ball, fluidity, weight transfer first into the stroke by the arm, still utilizing a wrist motion, can really help us stay very low to the keyboard, but at the same time still getting a lot of sound. So that's today's Axiom. Hope you enjoyed watching, and we'll see you next time.